Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, and welcome to Shedding the Bitch Radio, where you can discuss, debate, and get advice on how to discover and shed the bitches of fear, insecurity, self-doubt, and negative mindsets so you can realize your dreams and life purpose and create and accelerate the riches you want in life. Join us here live every Tuesday at noon Eastern and dialogue with us at 818-572-2910. You can also chat with us at Blog Talk Radio /SheddingTheBitch or share your stories on our website at sheddingthebitch.com. Whatever the bitch is that's holding you back from living your life to the fullest, it's not worth giving up the riches in life that you deserve. So call in now and let Bernadette Bose know what's holding you back. 818-572-2910.
Good day, everyone. How is everybody on this glorious first day of May? Do you believe it? I mean, it's just, life has got to slow down. The fact that we're already, completed 4 months of this new year, it's just mind-blowing. But again, I hope you're having a beautiful, beautiful May 1st, wherever you might be. I mentioned to you last week, I am sitting at the beach. With my 5 sisters, my niece, the one niece that was able to come down, I have a large number of nieces, but she had to leave first thing this morning. So my sisters and I are sitting here. Fortunately, my sisters, they're out on the beach right now. They're sitting in the sand. They're looking out at the ocean. They're watching the dolphins go by. And I've been up in the house working all morning, but now speaking to you, which is perfectly fine, and I'll get myself down there at some point, though I was just talking to Deborah before we came live, and I was telling her that I'm not a sunbather, really never been a sunbather, even though I spent a lot of years in Boca Raton, Florida. At the same time, since about my mid to late 20s, I just have not wanted to kind of bake myself and bake my skin, and I did have a bout of melanoma a couple of years ago on my back, so I don't kind of push it. I don't set myself up for a potential issue. So but I'll get myself down there, especially as the sun does come down, or first thing in the morning, very early, is when I tend to make my way down to the sand. And that brings me to our topic for today. It is Ask Bernadette. So what I did was I had a question or two kind of in the realm of what May's all about. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Did you know that? And from what I could tell online, and I wish I could say that I've been an expert in making, May a Mental Health Awareness Month, I actually noticed over the last few years it was only a week. So obviously with everything that's going on in the world this past year, these organizers have felt that, we need to make it a full month. And if not a full month, we need to make it a daily. And that's why I thought it was important for us to have this conversation today. Because one, I was definitely feeling, even leading up to my trip, I've been on the beach since Friday, and I just felt myself that my mental, emotional, spiritual, physical self needed a break and needed some rest and relaxation. And quite honestly, there's been a number of things going on with my family and even my extended family, meaning in-laws and whatnot. And I really also needed to just be able to physically hug and give a kiss to my sisters. I'll see my brothers in a couple of weeks, but right now there was a much need for mental health. And I thought, well, let's take then, this idea of mental health, this stigma of mental health, and let's put a focus on it on this month's program, because of the fact that it is Mental Health Awareness Week, Mental Health Awareness Month. So that's what I'd love to sit back and talk with you about. And if you have any questions, stories, or challenges you want to discuss, whether it's during live program right now for the next hour, or if you go out to Facebook and Twitter or LinkedIn at any time, feel free to reach out to me. I was even posting at the last minute that should you have a question, should you have someone or something that you needed to talk about, or even if you're an expert in this area of mental health, I would love you to contribute to the conversation. And as a matter of fact, we'll look for some last-minute experts to come back onto the program over the next few weeks. We do have some guests, but any openings I have, I definitely want to put to this subject because we definitely need to all work together in order to really, kind of go from surviving life, which the majority of us do, is just kind of make it through every day, and we feel, fortunate, to really thriving in life, and how to turn mental health on its head to where it's not a stigma, and it's not something that we shy away from, and it's not something that we don't talk about. We have to put the spotlight on it, and we'll get into all of that during the program. So I'm working on my mental health, and hope you are as well. At the same time, normally when I'm away at the beach, it's Mother's Day week. At least it's the Tuesday prior to Mother's Day. And now I guess Mother's Day is even a week later. So it's not, but at the same time, I want to remind everybody, it is Mother's Day coming up. I believe it's the 14th. And so moms out there, what can you be doing to focus on your own mental health? And either treating yourself to a day of self-love or an hour of self-care or whatever the case might be, or even suggesting, if not telling, those people that love you and that will buy you candy or flowers or take you out to dinner. Maybe instead you say, you know what, I'd really love to have a day off, go out with friends, go out on a date with my, partner or whomever. I want a spa day. I want a massage. I want something that will allow me to just kind of take a deep breath, relax, and really focus on you. So I'll remind you of that next week as well. It's just important for each one of us, whether you're a mother or not, to really build in self-care into your life each and every day, and we'll talk about that. So we are going to talk about mental health. We're going to talk about what it is and what it's not. We're going to talk about the stigma around it, the impact of mental health, the things you could do to talk about it, even address it, and then, of course, if you are supporting someone in your life that's dealing with it, whether it's subtle or simple or dramatic and traumatic, we want to put a spotlight on that because, like I said, together we can turn it from being a stigma to being what it is. And that is a health issue that deserves the same attention and treatment as any other. And we're going to also define that a little bit more so you really get a handle on what exactly is mental health when people, use that saying, and without us rolling our eyes or, going inward and not wanting to talk about it, not wanting to confront it. We need to be self-aware. As we talk a lot about on this program, self-awareness is step one to you thriving in life, and you even then helping other people to thrive in life. Think about it when you fly. They always tell you put the mask on yourself first, and then put the mask on the people that you're with. Self-care, self-love, mental health, and stability are all the same thing. It is taking care of yourself first, so you're at your optimal in order to help other people around you. All right, so this is what I want you to be thinking about. We always give a rich question for you to consider as we get into these conversations, whether it's one of the Ask Bernadette programs like today, or it's one of the programs we have a guest with us. So your rich question for today, I want you to ponder, is what is your attitude toward mental health? And when you ask that of yourself, go quiet and just really see what comes up. It might come up physically, it might come up emotionally, it might come up as you rolling your eyes or you go, kind of going inward. But what is your perception? What is your belief system? What is your attitude or judgment around mental health? Again, awareness is key to making a shift, especially a positive shift in anything. Now, the rich tags I would like all of us to be using as we have this conversation, not only during the program, but even post the program, and especially throughout the month of May, which is, again, Mental Health Awareness Month. So our hashtags are going to be mental health awareness. Our hashtag is going to be stop the stigma, and of course, shed the bitch. All right, because you can always lump this topic of discussion into our overall theme of shedding the bitch by it being, let's shed the mental health stigma, bitch. Make sense? All right. We're going to take a quick commercial. We're going to come back and we're going to get into defining it, confronting it, and then working to heal it for you or someone that you know and love. We'll be right back.
You are listening to Shedding the Bitch Radio with Bernadette Bose. We are inspiring individuals around the globe to discover, confront, and shed their bitches of fear, insecurity, and negativity so they can create the riches in their career, business, and life they deserve. Be sure to check out Bernadette's book, Shedding the Corporate Bitch, Shifting from Bitch to Rich in Life and Business, available on Amazon and sheddingthebitch.com. We also want to thank our sponsors, TSR Consulting, who offers a broad range of tax services for small to corporate-sized clients. Go to tsrconsulting.com to learn more. And Parker House Virtual Services, who provides virtual assistance and social media support for small to medium-sized businesses. Email Deborah Parker at deborahparker78@gmail.com for more information. To become a sponsor or advertiser on our program, email us at mediarelations@sheddingthebitch.com. Shedding the Bitch Radio airs every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time. Be sure to go to blogtalkradio.com/Shedding the Bitch Radio and follow the program for all of the updates and announcements of our guests and show topics. Now let's return to Bernadette and Shedding the Bitch Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. We are talking mental health because it is Mental Health Awareness Month all month of May. So it's perfect that it's May 1st. It'll give us a lot of breathing room to have this conversation. So if you're not completely comfortable right now opening up, maybe tomorrow, maybe a week from now, maybe by the time we get on to the next program, next Tuesday, because we all know mental health, especially right now with everything going on in the world, is a very critical component of having a very thriving life. So what is it? And what is the kind of a formal definition of it? And it's really simple. A person's condition with regard to their psychological and emotional well-being. Now, you can replace that and say, okay, so what's physical health? Well, it's a person's condition with regard to their physical well-being. So why we kind of alienate mental health as if it's a stigma or if it's a, not a sin, but almost like a scar, is really inappropriate and is really doing a disservice to so many of us. Because all we really need and what we need to focus on is the fact that just like a physical ailment, we also have to take care of our mental, our emotional, our psychological, because we do have a brain and a heart that also kind of, makes up our entire well-being. And yet we always focus just on the physical. So what we're going to do as much as we can for the next 30 days and beyond is focus on the mental, the psychological, and the emotional. So how does it show up? And each one of you could be sitting there right now to try to think through, and maybe you already rolled your eyes going, I don't have a mental health issue. Well, guess what? If you've ever been depressed, if you've ever been angry, if you've ever been in a state of self-pity or self-loathing, maybe you or someone you know is extremely negative toward the world, toward themselves, toward anything. Maybe you deal with anger or anxiety, a panic attack. You could have extremes to where you or someone you know experiences mood swings to the extent where it might even be diagnosed as bipolar. Maybe you have OCD. I have elements of it within myself. or even hypomania, which is when for an extended period of time, someone is extremely hyper, extremely excited and demonstrating that. And you can go on and on and on. So the first question that you have to ask yourself before you start rolling eyes or making judgments or thinking this is a stigma is, have you ever experienced any one of those things, whether it be for an hour, a day, a month, and sadly, if it went on for months or years? If so, then you yourself have dealt with mental health issues. And that should not be a negative thing. That should not be a bad thing. That should just be something that you're dealing with, just like if you had an ankle issue or you had a stomach issue or you had a heart issue. In this case, you're having a mental issue and therefore should put all the spotlights on yourself and or anybody that's dealing with it in order to find them the help that they need to kind of get through and push through it. Excuse me. So we kind of now know what it is, the psychological, the emotional. We know all the different forms that it can come in, whether we acknowledge it, admit it, or self-aware of it. And at the same time, we also have to recognize how it can come about. Because like I had said early on, it could be very subtle or it could be very, very dramatic. So some ideas, put it in your head about ideas around how any one of those mental health issues could come about. Well, it could be simply as being rejected. Maybe you were turned down for a job or for a promotion, or maybe from a date or a sale from a client. And that emotional state, that emotional reaction that you have to that in a form of rejection that then could turn into depression or could turn into anger or negativity or self-loathing or self-pity. And whether it lasts, again, if it lasts 5 minutes, an hour, or it's something that's ongoing, you need to, for yourself and for anyone else around you that might be experiencing it, you need to be able to tap into it and recognize it as quickly as possible in order for you then to decide and choose, because it's choice, as to whether or not you're going to survive that you're simply going to survive that, deal with it, accept it, get comfortable with it, or you're going to decide you want to thrive and move and push through it. But it could be as subtle as that. It could be a childhood trauma that, that then kind of lingers on. And I'll mention a few of my own so maybe you can relate. But that might, linger on and become part of your story, part of your mental health. Either that needs to be worked on and supported and helped, or if you've already kind of pushed yourself through and now you're thriving. It could be PTSD. And it's interesting because, PTSD for many, they go right to, PTSD is only for those people who have been through war. And fortunately, they've done a tremendous amount of study on PTSD, and I won't claim to be an expert in PTSD. However, I do know that they've done a tremendous amount of study, especially over the last decade, on the effects of PTSD. And they have found that even, incidences that you might have gone through, such as a childhood trauma or maybe an assault, or maybe you're one of those victims of a Parkland or a Cumberbatch, type of shooting. Maybe you've been through a natural disaster like Sandy or one of the other storms and lost everything, lost, what you're feeling as if is your entire life. Maybe you've been in a car accident or have had a loss or a death that you just can't shake. PTSD is even, described as something that may not show up immediately, but over time and very subtly and very dramatically, creating, longer term impact, should you allow it, longer impact to your life and to your mental health and stability. So you really, for yourself and for those around you, you just want to be able to tap into how you're responding and reacting and feeling towards situations that occur in your life. Because again, the difference between surviving life and thriving in it is being able to tap into and recognizing those things and deciding to make a shift and a change so you can move to thriving as opposed to just surviving. Because the impacts can be life-altering, can be devastating, can be changing. They can, affect every area of your life, and it's not just about you either. Now, of course, as we said at the beginning and the top of the hour of this conversation, you do need to take care of yourself first. But we said that in the scope of the fact that by taking care of yourself, you're able to take care of those around you. Well, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not able to take care of those around you. So if you're failing or you're ignoring or you're avoiding, really recognizing maybe something that you're going through, and ladies, a lot of times women, kind of go an entire life without not necessarily recognizing it, but doing anything about it, because just like women do, they feel that they need to take care of everybody else long before they take care of themselves. But if you can learn that concept of putting on the mask on yourself first and then putting it on other people, the people around you, the people that you love, that you care for, then you'll recognize the fact that by taking care of yourself is not being selfish. It's not thinking about only you. It's taking care of yourself so you can take care of other people around you. And we talk a lot about just always being self-aware, and even we don't use the word self-diagnose, but that's basically what we're saying is if you can get to know yourself to the point where when you do have subtle shifts or dramatic shifts, whether you do have subtle incidences in your life or you have the rug pulled out from under you, you will know and recognize that, know how you've responded in the past and how that response affected you. And then you can make a choice as to saying, well, I responded in this way and I didn't really like it and it kept me down in the doldrums for too long. Or, I responded in this way, I acknowledged that, I decided I didn't want that, and I pushed myself and confronted and shed whatever it was that was holding you down, and that is the direction I want to take for this situation. So the more you get to know yourself, the more you get to understand your response and your reaction to things, then the more effective you will be in self-care and in taking care of yourself mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, physically, in all of those ways. So you're healthy all around. So mental health issues can have impacts not only on you, but those around you. It could have impacts in the way of, again, whether it's you or someone else, whether there's a suicide or not, or whether there's a murder or not, or whether there is someone that falls into addiction as a result of them not taking care of themselves, not tapping into what it is that they're feeling and dealing with. Obviously, they can fall into depression and loneliness to where they're secluding themselves, away from everybody. And all of a sudden, that subtle incident turns into a more dramatic, which could turn into someone, hibernating or just, becoming reclusive, and you losing that person or losing yourself, not only mentally, but also physically, because they choose that. And of course, we all know that many of the homeless that are out there are deemed, with mental health issues. And if you looked at it and you considered what effects mental health can have on someone, again, that loneliness, those addictions, those reclusiveness, those, hiding, turns into them finding themselves on the street, homeless, and not getting the care that they need and that they deserve. But when you look at, okay, so I don't want to fall myself or someone else to fall into a state of potential suicide or even murder or addiction or loneliness or homelessness. I want it to be different. Well, then always focus on the positive effects of overcoming the ego when it comes to mental health. And that's where the stigma gets created, is in the ego, and recognizing that, you can stay positive, stay hopeful, and though it may not happen overnight, you can find, if you want to call it a cure, or if you want to call solutions or strategies or support mechanisms that allow you to push through whatever it is that you or someone else is dealing with. You'll find that happiness, you'll find that confidence, you'll find that stability and that safety and that security by addressing the thriving through a mental health issue as opposed to simply surviving through it. And the effects, totally contrary to the effects if you don't deal with it and you still consider it a stigma, to where you're too proud and you're too stubborn and one's too, I'll use the word, ignorant to wanting to take care of themselves or those that they love, and therefore they go down that path of the stigma as opposed to going down the path of facing it and confronting it, shedding it, and thriving through it. And those could be, the impacts. And you have a choice. Which direction do you want to go, and how do you want the result to look like? And you can choose which path to take through yours or someone else's mental health issues. But we are going to talk about how you can tell if someone, even yourself, is dealing with mental health. But I do want to talk about the stigma issue first, as a segue from our previous conversation. If you think about it, go back to the question I asked at the Rich question at the top of the hour. What is your attitude toward mental health? And if you didn't ask it earlier, ask it to yourself right now and kind of feel through it. Did you roll your eyes? Did you choke up? Did you kind of your stomach, contract? Did you get goosebumps? Did you just get quiet? We all have our biases. We all have our opinions. We all have our judgments around mental health. And I'll tell you right now that if you had asked me about mental health about, 6-8 years ago, I would have looked at it as purely those people that, are dealing with the very severe mental health issues, that are manic depressive or are suicidal or are the ones, that are all of a sudden, I guess you can say bipolar or hypomania or those other things. I would not have necessarily said, based on some incidences and traumas in my own life, my behavior of drinking too much, of eating too much, of, having a fear of missing out, having some compulsions and OCD. Have nothing to do with all of those, traumas and incidences in my life. Those aren't mental health issues. Those are just blah, 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 blah. Get it? So even I would have just dismissed it or judged it or, ignored the fact that, guess what, Bernadette? Had you realized it and kind of confronted this stuff 10, 15, 20 years ago, you might have saved yourself a lot of junk, a lot of bitches, as we call them. And I don't have any regrets. So life has happened the way it's supposed to happen for me. I'm just glad today I can tell you that I've moved beyond about 99% of them. And I'll mention that in just a second. But we all deal with bitches. We all deal with junk. We just have to be willing to own it, to be okay with it, to accept it, and then to want to do something about it. Because that's what life is every day. it's a choice of whether or not you want to live in the junk or live beyond it. You want to live with the bitches or create your riches. That's all what Shedding the Bitch is all about, shifting from bitch to rich. So that's your choice. And every day we have to make those choices because every day we have stuff that comes up in life that will cause us to get down into the junk. And, you can describe depression as, sitting on your couch eating bonbons for a day, a week, or you can look at it as, depression must be something where they're hiding away and they're drinking or, doing drugs or they're just miserable. They never come out. I mean, there's so many degrees of all of it. So for any one of us to say that we don't have mental health issues, I want someone to say that to me. I challenge you. Say that to me. Maybe you don't have them today, but to say that someone's lived any amount of days, weeks, months, and years on this earth, every one of us have dealt with mental health. So the idea that we're looking at it as a stigma of something that we should be ashamed of something that we, get defensive about or shut up about or don't acknowledge or don't have anything to do with is just wrong. And it's doing a disservice to all of us because when that time comes, should it come, I'm not saying that I hope it comes for you or someone that you love, you want all the support around you that you can get. You want it. You want it, you want it, you want it. And so, don't cry wolf. Don't cry to where you don't acknowledge it, you don't support it, you only judge it, and then when you need it, you're expecting everyone to open their arms to it, because it's not going to happen. So learn today to recognize that you and everyone around you deserve the self-care and the love and the support to deal with any of the psychological, emotional, mental challenges, mental hiccups that we might experience at any given time or for any amount of time. All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, I had mentioned I want to talk about how can you tell if someone, including yourself, might be dealing with some mental health issues. We'll be right back.
You are listening to Shedding the Bitch Radio with Bernadette Bose. We are inspiring individuals around the globe to discover, confront, and shed their bitches of fear, insecurity, and negativity so they can create the riches in their career, business, and life they deserve. Be sure to check out Bernadette's book, Shedding the Corporate Bitch, Shifting from Bitch to Rich in Life and Business, available on Amazon and sheddingthebitch.com. We also want to thank our sponsors, TSR Consulting, who offers a broad range of tax services for small to corporate-sized clients. Go to tsrconsulting.com to learn more. And Parker House Virtual Services, who provides virtual assistance and social media support for small to medium-sized businesses. Email Deborah Parker at deborahparker78@gmail.com for more information. To become a sponsor or advertiser on our program, email us at mediarelations@sheddingthebitch.com. Shedding the Bitch Radio airs every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time. Be sure to go to blogtalkradio.com/Shedding the Bitch Radio and follow the program for all of the updates and announcements of our guests and show topics. Now let's return to Bernadette and Shedding the Bitch Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. We are celebrating, honoring, putting on a pedestal mental health and the mental health awareness, because it is Mental Health Awareness Month. We are taking the stigma out of it and appreciating it for what it is. Just like any physical illness or physical ailment or physical trauma that gets in our way and that, impacts our life, our mental health is just as, if not even more important, to ensure that we are removing any stigma about it, any judgment, any negativity about it, and recognizing it for what it is. Another aspect of a human being that is made up of both a body and a mind. And so we're taking care of our mind today, and we're shedding the mental health stigma, bitch, and providing you some education and some thoughts and insights on what you could be doing and learning and becoming self-aware of. So how can you tell if someone is dealing with mental health? Now, I actually took this from a question that I was asked, and I kind of changed it around, but I'm going to also address that. I'm going to make sure we don't run out of time. Because what I was actually asked specifically was, how can I get better at bouncing back after a situation? And they had explained the situation to me. How can I kind of get better at bouncing back, because it's just, taking a particular situation took too long and really created a lot of havoc for this individual. So I kind of turned that around because I wanted to make sure, I thought it was important for all of us to know and to be aware and to learn about what it is, what is that behavior that could be indicating that mental health issues. And we certainly recognize how devastating, through all these shootings, especially these school shootings that have gone on, or the, driving up sidewalks and ramming people with their cars. Only afterwards do we hear about the fact that they had mental health issues, and, the families, bless their hearts, then come out saying, I wish I had paid attention more, or if I wish I picked up on that cue. So I think it's important for us to really have some indicators, have some things that we could always be looking out for. Not as if we have to be, paranoid about it. But if you see any of these things, whether it's about yourself or someone else, then maybe you just want to tune in and turn that channel up a little bit higher so you can do what you need to do. And we're going to talk about how you can talk to people and how to go about really supporting anyone that might be going through something. So picture yourself or picture someone else and think about, have you seen changes in their mood? We were having a conversation the other night, and this was a whole separate conversation, and someone had mentioned, and I'm trying not to disclose anything, but someone had mentioned that, yes, they recognized that this particular gentleman's mood had changed. It had gotten very, from being a bubbly person, very short, very abrupt, very impatient. And, it took them months to really recognize it and then tap into it and ask about it. Unfortunately, it was one of those things that once, they were even recognizing they had a support system around them, they made changes. So if you see changes in mood or their behavior or routine, if they were always, doing X, Y, and Z, and, whether it's activities or kind of time routines, routines about going to the gym and all of a sudden they stop, or routines about getting up at, 6 in the morning and, getting home at 5 and then going out till 8, but then all of a sudden you're recognizing that they're sleeping longer, or they're staying out longer, or they're never coming home, or they're avoiding or avoiding and ignoring something. If you see that they do have mood swings, or they are withdrawing for some reason, maybe they are distracted. God forbid if they start self-harming themselves or self-abusing. And self-abusing can go as far as, drinking too much, eating too much, doing drugs, staying out or going out socially. I had mentioned that I developed a major fear of missing out, FOMA, fear of missing out. Now, you might kind of go, oh, well, you just wanted to be sure you were everywhere. No, I recognized that due to a couple of situations, traumas, that I did it just so I wasn't sitting for any amount of time, and that I was always surrounded by somebody. So it can show up in very different ways. And that can be a form of self-harm, or it could be a physical self-harm where they're cutting or doing other things to themselves. Maybe it was someone that you always saw, and again, personal experience, not with me, but with a very dear friend, personal experience where They were always the life of the party. They were always very positive, very go get 'em. And all of a sudden, over time, became very negative, very dark, very gloomy. If you said the sky was blue, it was black. If you said it was raining, it was sunny. Everything was just so negative. And again, these things can happen very subtly. And yet, whether it's day 1 or day 300, if you pick up on these type of changes in yourself or someone else, you just want to be able to respond to it and acknowledge it, become aware of it, and then work toward trying to solve it. And once again, recognizing that in someone else or yourself, don't be hard on yourself that if you don't recognize it right away and maybe something does happen, God forbid, you just have to be easy on yourself and then try a little harder, and now you're self-aware to where something might be going on. It's not a secret where I have a nephew that went through his own stuff, for instance. So one part of the conversation that we were having, my sisters and I were having yesterday, I think, or the day before, was until they were with him at a support meeting, and he got up and said that he had fallen into a depression, for a couple months right before that meeting. My sister and her husband, his parents, were stunned. They never picked up on it. They never, even though they talk on a daily basis, and the father sees the son because they work together on a regular basis, neither one of them really saw at all that he had fallen kind of backwards, and they were shocked. Yet they were also woken up because they recognized that maybe they got too relaxed on paying attention to those cues, even those subtle cues. Again, a change in a mood, in a behavior, in a routine that you keep. It might be a mood swing or being withdrawn. It could be that they're distracted or short-tempered or all of a sudden, impatient with you. Maybe they are, thank God this wasn't his situation, but, they are self-harming or self-abusing themselves. But maybe they have gotten very negative self-loathing. And if any of these relate to you too, even in the subtlest ways, be easy on yourself and just know that, well, if you're acknowledging it, if you're recognizing it and you're willing to acknowledge it, then you are on the first steps to doing something about it. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And remember, these things may not be from a dramatic experience. That someone doesn't have to go through a Parkland shooting or go through Sandy or go through a car accident or a friend of mine losing her leg from a simple bacterial, infection due to a scratch or a slash in her leg from a car accident. You don't have to have that. You could just have subtle life bitches that come up that cause you to feel depressed or sad or pained or angry or a number of those other things that we described. Hopefully that makes sense. I'll just give you a quick, for instance, because I've talked about it before. But if I looked at, and when I looked at back about 9 years ago, trying to figure out what was really causing me to have been that turned into that, ultimate corporate bitch. And I was just angry all the time, and I was very defensive, and I played devil's advocate. If I wasn't the negative to where if the sky was blue, I would say it was black. But I was more so always looking out for the worst case scenario to happen, because I felt, let's see if anybody can relate to this, because I felt that if I could feel and put my, psychological self through the worst case scenario, then I felt that I was protecting myself should it happen. Does that make sense? So when you're playing, devil's advocate or just negative toward the world, you're trying to protect yourself from that rejection. You're trying to protect yourself from bad things happening to you because you're feeling it before it even happens. I mean, how sad is that? And yet that was my mental health issue. And so I had to figure out, okay, so why? Why was I putting myself through that? Why did I all of a sudden go from this, young, precocious, happy-go-lucky young girl to this, grown woman who was very defensive, very angry, very guarded, very distrusting. And so I started going back into very, very pretty much day one, as I can remember, of my childhood. And, the big things that I kind of uncovered from that is everything from when I was, 1 to 5, and I recognized that I have 11 brothers and sisters, as many of you know, and I didn't look or taste or smell or talk or anything like my brothers and sisters. And they used to tease me, and everyone else around me teased me about being the milkman's daughter, the postman's daughter. Now, many of you might be chuckling and laughing and saying, oh, that's cute. I took it as I didn't fit into my family unit. I wasn't one of them. I stood out. I was different. I didn't look at it as unique yet. And so that kind of did its own inner wreaking on my psyche. And then I looked at the fact that, okay, so I was, knifed in grade school. All these are going to be long stories. I won't bore you with them, but I was knifed in grade school. I had a stalker at the age of 13 or 14 who then threatened myself and my father. And so we could tell that, yes, he was definitely watching and stalking me. I had an assault in my 20s by a cop. So I started looking at all these situations, and sadly there's more, but looking through these situations and kind of then linking them to, okay, so how did I respond and react, not only back then, but even today? And now, again, we're going back, 7 or 8 years when I really started doing my shedding. So we all have mental health traumas or issues, big or small, that we deal with in life. And our job, each of us individually, then together, is to be kind to each other, let me back up and say, be kind to ourselves, take care of ourselves, not judge ourselves, not allow anybody else to judge us, and then to swallow our pride where the stigma comes in, swallow our pride and seek the help that we need in order to address these things. So what did I do? I recognized them. I sat in them for a long time, meaning I just kind of lived with those experiences that I pushed down very far into my psyche, thinking that they were gone forever, and they never go away. Just know that now, they never go away. So I just decided that I wanted different. I wanted new. I wanted thriving. And I chose to sit in it, feel it, experience it, and then push through it. And we'll talk more about that in a minute or so. So I want you to realize, as you go back to that original question we asked, kind of what is your attitude regarding mental health? Ask yourself that again now and see if there's been any type of shift, recognizing the fact that every one of us at some point in our lives, if we've lived at all, have had junk to deal with. And again, it just depends on if someone, kind of decided for it to take them down and out, or if they decided to pick themselves up, even if it took a long time to get picked up. I lived in that junk for a couple of decades, 20 years I lived in that junk. I allowed that junk to hold me down. And in full transparency, I will tell you that there's a percentage of it that still lingers. There's a percentage of it that still shows up as lack of trust, quite honestly. That affects my life even to this day. And I just do whatever I can each and every day to be aware of it and to then be courageous and strong enough to confront it and push through it. So I don't allow that bitch, that mental health issue to keep me from thriving in life. And one day I expect that too will be taken care of. And until then, I just am kind to myself, sometimes hard on myself to keep moving. And that's what I want for you, is just to recognize that, acknowledge it, confront it, and then at your pace and your time, you will work and push your way through it. And we're going to talk about why I believe that to be so true in just a second, okay? All right, we're not even going to take a break because I'd like to just get right into this. What can you do in order to help other people? And then we're going to talk about how you can help yourself, okay? So what can you do to help other people once you recognize that maybe someone else is dealing with something, or maybe they came to you? You know, it was beautiful to learn a few years ago that my nephew went to my sister and her husband and said, I need help. But that doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes we have to help to shake the tree and let the leaves fall. So if that's the case and you want to help and guide that person through, first off, the first thing you need to do is just to kind of ground yourself, take a deep breath, and recognize that this may not be easy, it may not be immediate, and it may come with a lot of junk. It may come with a lot of resistance. It may come with a lot of angst. It may come with a lot of bitches when you reach out. If they haven't reached out to you, but when you reach out to someone else. Because just think about your own attitude possibly, or your own stigma that you feel toward, addressing mental health issues. So just know that to begin with, and know that you're going to need patience, you're going to need tolerance, you're going to need compassion and sympathy. You're going to need to rid yourself of any judgment or ridicule or blame. You need to get yourself in a position to where then you can approach them. I don't want to use the word confront in this situation because that just sounds too strong. You want to approach them to understand and to learn more, and that's the objective, is to learn more about what someone might be dealing with. Because all you can do is learn. You can't all of a sudden, almost take ownership of it or enable it. You just need to go on kind of a discovery with this person because they may discover things themselves that you might be seeing, but they just haven't been ready to acknowledge it themselves. So you have to be willing to go on a learning journey with them. And in doing so, it's going to all be centered around asking a lot of questions and then shutting up and listening. So you're a counselor, you're a coach, you're a spiritual guide, you're whatever it is, but you're asking questions, not making statements, not telling, not directing, or even delegating. You're simply asking a lot of questions and then shutting up and listening. So questions. It could be how was your day? And that's a very open-ended question, and it's not going to be up to you to not only listen, but then also to drill into that. So, of course, if you think about kids, how was your day? Fine. What'd you do at school? Nothing. You have to then be able to ask more questions that get down to the root. You might then need to ask or provide observations. If they do kind of very dismiss things, you might have to say, well, I've noticed that you're spending more time in your room, or I noticed that, you're showing up at work late, every morning, or I noticed that you're spending a lot of time at the gym. That was one of my responses is my shift into mental health issue was I became a compulsive worker out. Well, I don't know what you call it, a fitness person. I went for about an hour and a half in the morning. I went for 2 hours in the evening. Any chance I got that I was sitting still, I was in a gym. So you ask questions, you make observations. You even can provide examples that they can relate to, because maybe you've been through it. And you're just discovering, you're wanting to learn. And at first they may not open up to you. And so what you want to do then is not force it, let it happen the way it needs to happen. But then what you need to do is you need to simply come back to the person over time. Let them know you're always there for them. So you might send them texts. You might email them. You might leave a nice supportive voicemail, just letting them know that you're there for them. You might just, invite them out to dinner or out to a movie or out to, a walk on the beach, since I'm sitting here staring at the beach. You might provide them kind of recommendations and ideas of where they might be able to seek help. You might have to be direct to say, you may not be there right now. You may not see this in yourself, but let me just provide you some observations that I'm witnessing that all I'm asking you to do is to think about and consider. That won't be taken, defensively or offensively, but it's all in the way that you approach that conversation. As opposed to making statements or judgments or blaming or anything else, you simply ask questions, make observations, provide things that they can relate to, and then basically shut up and let them feel it, sit in it, and eventually, God bless, they open up and they reach out. And if they don't necessarily reach out right directly back to you, but they then say to themselves, okay, I can go and seek help through a friend or another family member or a professional. And we talked about kind of what you should not do. You don't want at any time judge, complain, blame, make statements or tell them. Those are things that if you think about when you're mad or pissed or when you're hurt or feel offended and someone comes at you just making statements and making accusations or making judgments, you get very defensive. Your guard goes up. So just think about someone that might be dealing with, depression or anxiety or anger. You don't want to provoke it. You want to support it and sympathize with it. All right, make sense? So that question about how can I, bounce back? How can I be better at bouncing back? The question that a friend of mine asked me the other day. Like I said, live in the emotion. When you're going through something, subtle or dramatic, live in it, feel it, recognize how it is, causing your body, your mind, your spirit to react. Be easy on yourself. Self-care, self-care, self-care. It should be the month of self-care is what the month should be called, along with mental health awareness, but it's all about self-care. Of course, you can write it out. We talk about journaling a lot here, or talking it out. Of course, seeking help. Recognize that I wish, going to see a therapist was, because going to see a therapist is no different than sitting down and talking to a life coach or a business coach. It's just a different certification on the wall. Or it could be just the fact that, they could prescribe, and they can do certain things, more than someone else can. But seek help. Don't let it allow some stigma or vanity or pride to get in your way. And of course, you having goals or making sure that person has goals and really understanding why they want to achieve that goal will expedite their ability to move forward and get out of the junk in their head, because that's all what it's all about. And I'm going to put on there on Facebook, on Twitter, I'm going to put on some other ways that you can work on healing mental health for yourself or someone else, since we're running out of time. So I'll make sure that gets posted to our Facebook and Twitter page. All right, everybody. I want to thank everybody for participating today or listening to a download. I'll talk to you right back here next Tuesday at noon Eastern time. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Shedding the Bitch Radio with Bernadette Bose. Join Bernadette every Tuesday at noon Eastern as she helps you shift your bitches to riches. And the dialogue is always going on at sheddingthebitch.com. See you next week.